Yoo-hoo!
Yay! Hi,
Hi.
everybody. Welcome to the Agent Jam session. Unfortunately, our third panelist, George, couldn't make it today. Was a little mishap with the timing, but we're happy to have two beautiful agents from actually two different continents here today. We have Isabel Scharnberg from New York, from Isabel Scharnberg Creative Management, and Jennifer Turner from Wren Artist from London. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here with us. So we would like to know, first of all, how did you guys get to become an agent? And also maybe, because we have a lot of photographers watching today, what does your agency look like? Describe your roster, and maybe also how did you create this roster, and what do you pay attention to when you put together this roster? So Isabel, just because of the video, do you want to start introducing yourself, please?
Oh, hi. Thanks, Beatrice, for the short intro. So I'm in the industry since 1998. I actually started in Munich, and it was all by accident. I always wanted to become a photographer myself first when I was 16. Then I changed my mind since I had to only make coffee. So I decided I would do I would go in a different direction. But then somehow I had a friend who worked in an advertising agency, and she said there was always this woman stopping by with those big portfolios, and she was interested in doing something like this. I mean, at that time, we didn't really know what is this. I mean, what is a photographer agent? And she found a job because there was this company, like a big fashion photographer agency, who started to expand. And after 1 month, she said, oh, she's looking for more people. And I stopped by. She asked me for my horoscope sign. I said, I'm a Cancer. She's like, oh, like my children. So when can you start? Tomorrow? So it was like, okay, and what will I do? What is this type of, what will my position be? And she said, well, we will call you agency assistants. And this is how I started. And 2 years later, I eventually would have my photographers I was representing. And then I had the opportunity. She sent me in 2006 to New York to open her office. And after I was a total of 10 years with her, like 7 years in Germany and 3 years in New York, I decided to do it on my own, since it's a 24/7 job most of the times. And then I was like, why not just giving it a try? So I started around 2010. So I have my company now 7 years, about 7 years. So.
Okay, great. Do you want to say a word about your roster today and what kind of artists you represent, and maybe also how you put together that roster?
Okay, so the original idea actually was to have from every category a photographer, to have no competition within my agency. But over the years now, it changed a little bit. So because we are more focused still on fashion, since I come from a fashion agency, we still do have also, of course, still lifer and a food photographer. But most of the photographers are very conceptual, and they still they have great skills. They know how to light things. They don't only need retouching. That was always important to me to know. I represent artists who really know what they do. So, and then also we decided we would have different categories in terms of fashion, more like high fashion, medium fashion, so on. so we can have not too much competition on our roster, and we can focus on each artist with different clientele. So that's a bit our focus. And we also do photo productions for European clients who come to New York, since I still am connected to Germany, since I have a collaboration partner in Munich. So we try to, pass each other jobs along, and photographers, and all and collaborate. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, Isabel. Jennifer, I'm curious to hear now your background, and whether there may be similarities or not, and also to hear about your agency.
It's quite funny because it's similar to Isabel. I was kind of laughing as you were going through because I was like, that's not the star sign thing. I didn't get asked my star sign, but it was, you know, a very similar thing. I studied photography at university, and it was because I didn't want to be a photographer, but I was rubbish at art because I couldn't draw, and I knew, like, I loved art, but I could never do any of the kind of fine arts. And I realized that if I picked up a camera or used other people's images, I could create art without it being something which you had to be able to do a drawing for. And so I sort of quickly learned that even with the photography, I didn't want to take the photograph, I just wanted to work with the people who took the photograph. And I originally wanted to go into picture editing, like on a picture desk at a magazine or something like that. And I did a short, like a week's worth of work experience at Arena magazine when it was open in London, but it closed down quite quickly afterwards. And I realized, I was like, hang on a second, I'm too for the photographer. And I was like, well, how is it working like this? And I was so interested in the photographer that I was like, well, I think I need to work in an agency rather than be a commissioner. And so I went and worked for quite a small agency here in London, but who were working with fantastic photographers who were sort of at the top of their game in the commercial advertising world, and I learned very quickly. And again, exactly the same thing. I was working 24/7 for someone else, and went, oh, hang on a second, I could do this myself, and I'd feel much better about the late nights and everything like that. So I launched Wren Artists 2 years ago, and we have 5 photographers, no, not 5, sorry, we've got 6 photographers, and we're about to launch our 7th. And we started off with 3 photographers, and in a similar way, we wanted our artists to be very individual, but not in terms of their subject matter, but more in terms of their style, so that they held on to that style and hopefully kind of occupied that space in the industry because of their style, rather than sort of, I suppose, going, right, that person only does still life and that person focuses on portraiture. And it's interesting because it's slightly different, and it means that some people struggle with the communication because they go, oh, but I need to know whether this photographer is a still life or a portrait artist. But it's also really fantastic because we can sort of just play around a little bit more with the photographer's identity, as long as, I suppose, what I'm trying to say is that the identity of the photographer is what we work on in terms of their style, and then we try and pitch that to the client.
Okay, great. Jennifer, could you move a little bit closer to the microphone? It's a little hard to hear you, or if you have headphones nearby, that would be amazing too.
I'll try my headphones, if they're better.
Yeah. Okay, great. Maybe in the meantime, so to get a little bit more to know the work of an agent, I guess, from both of your point of views, what with the changing industry and with photographers having their own Instagram and their own web presentation online, and being very active in presenting themselves, where do you see the role of the agent today? What's the maybe changing purpose of an agent, or maybe not? Is it do you see yourself as a mentor for young artists? Do you see yourself as a manager, as a partner, or as a, sales? Of course, it's a big part of it too. So maybe Isabel, would you start?
Of course. So, I think everything you mentioned is, I would agree, I think a big role is still, it's either, to protect your artist, because nowadays with all this content, of course, people ask for more and more and more and more, but they do not really appreciate the work financially or budget-wise so much. So we have to fight much harder. The competition, of course, gets much bigger nowadays because the big photographers who would have never touched you know, jobs where they wouldn't make a certain amount of money, they go for those jobs now as well. But on the other hand, you know, it's great nowadays that there's so many other chances due to all this content which is needed. And I think, you know, some younger artists, they start already with like videos or GIFs. I mean, I still think that not everyone is good in telling stories in a video, in motion. There's certain photographers who have, you know, who have this ability. And certain are just doing really beautiful pictures, which is great. And I think either way, you know, you still can succeed in this industry. And I think our role is very much either to tell, you know, your photographer what you can sell. I mean, it's very relative, you know. I think we all have like a certain opinion of what we like and what we don't like. And I think it's always teamwork. And, you know, sometimes we get a job for them, sometimes they pass us on someone, we do the negotiations, you know. I do think it's kind of still somewhat a marriage. So there has to be a lot of communication, and the photographer can still not just sit there and wait for an agent to bring him the job. So it's a bit more hustle and fighting nowadays than it was once, I'd say.
Okay, great. Jennifer, what do you think?
In terms of would you be able to recap on the question?
Yeah. So what do you? Yeah, right. That's true. So we're talking about the role of an agent in today's climate, where photographers are getting more capable and more eager to get their own work and represent themselves. And where do you see the role of an agent today and the benefits? Do you see yourself as a curator, as a mentor, as what is it?
Yeah. Well, I think adding to what Isabel said about sort of protection and what you just said about being a mentor, it is a bit of that as well, because with the rise of social media, and it's so easy to put work out very quickly, and you get instant gratification because, you know, if one of my photographers puts their work out on their Instagram, they get a certain amount of likes, and, you know, and then a lot of the time that qualifies as a good piece of work. And so it's, you know, and I'm sort of working against that a lot of the time and saying just because Instagram liked it doesn't mean it's the right direction for you. And let's look at kind of your progression as an artist and going forward. So we do a lot of kind of mentoring and development with the artist to make sure that they're pushing forward as a photographer to keep them relevant in what is like the very fast moving industry. And just again, like trying to make sure that they're going towards a way that we're able to get them commissions as well, but whilst retaining their style. So we spend a lot of time doing that. And, you know, we do sometimes get stuff come in where, you know, a client has got in touch with the photographer via their Instagram or something like that. And it is a constant battle in terms of going, okay, but how much can we charge for this work in comparison to what people want to pay? And that's a really delicate kind of handling situation. So it's sort of, you know, I would set the role into lots of different parts in that sense, is that you go, okay, we've got the photographer management in terms of their development, and then we've got the client management and the pitching, and then obviously the production once the job comes off too.
Okay, amazing. That's really interesting, because I think sometimes because your work is in the background, it sometimes doesn't really get noticed from either side. Because that's another question that I wanted to ask you, how, as an agent, you almost deal with like two sides of, like two client sides. You one have the artist to serve to, and then the client itself. Would you be able to say something quick about this relationship? Is that something that you enjoy? Is it difficult? And again, is that changing today? And I'm going to start with Isabel, but Jennifer, would you be able to mute your microphone for a minute? So that we don't have the, yeah, perfect. And no background noise. Okay, Isabel.
Oh, did you, sorry, I
Yeah.
think I missed up. I got
Okay.
lost.
Do you hear do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Now
great.
it's very clear and good. It was like a lot of noise, sorry.
Exactly.
So I got distracted.
Yeah, where do you find yourself between the two client sides that you have to serve? One, the artist on one side, and then the client on the other side. How do you juggle that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you always have to balance this, and you're always the ball in between who, like, you know, tries to make everyone happy. Sometimes, you know, there are very easy solutions to it, and sometimes they are not. But I mean, I think it's, at the end of the day, you know, it's a job we have, and I think we have to try to balance this. It's stressful enough, I think, being an agent. So I think it's you know, it's doable. I mean, it's doable to find compromises sometimes. So both sides are happy, you know. I guess for the artist, it's more than on the financial part, and for the client to get more out of things. But you know, that's most of the arguments we have usually, right? To figure out like how much they can pay, how much is fair, and you know, to find an in-between. And if we don't feel comfortable with something, then of course our photographer always has, you know, or our artist always has our back, you know. Then we rather don't commit to something if we don't feel comfortable, because I don't think it makes sense to force someone, because we want to do a good job and we want the client to come back. And so it has to be a good fit for both sides.
Great. Yeah, and Jennifer, what do you think?
It's the same, really. It's the photographer is the client in the end, as well as the client. And for me, I always think if the photographer's happy, the suppliers are happy, then we're creating the best work that we can possibly make, which then equals a happy client in the end. Which is sometimes painful along the process when you're saying to the client, we don't want to show you this because we're still working on it, or something like that. But in the end, it means that you have happy customers and then repeat business, which then everyone's happy with in the end.
Yeah, amazing. No, it's true. I mean, I totally see you guys are sometimes in a difficult place, but also it's a beautiful job because you get to work with so many different talents and clients. So because our audience is mainly photographers who are seeking representation or thinking about it, I would like to jump into the Q&A session to have the audience ask you a couple of questions. And one that was very popular is like when photographers reach out to you, is there something that you are looking for when people like email you, or are there certain red flags that like total no-go where you wouldn't even like respond to the email? Could you say a little bit about that? Yeah, who wants to start? I always jump to Isabel right away.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
So in terms of red flags, in the end, you try and get in touch, like get back to as many people as you can. But at the same time, if someone hasn't personalized an email to me, then there's less chance of me getting back to them as someone else who, you know, understands the agency and has taken time, which is just a really simple thing. We sometimes get photographers where we've gone back to them and said, you know, your work's not necessarily right for the style of the agency, so unfortunately we can't give you our time. And then you'll get sort of 10 emails after that still asking to come and see you. You're like, no, I made it quite clear. But I think one of the things that really jumps out to me is if people have sort of paid attention and know the agency and say, I think I could be a good fit because, and it's such a simple thing, but if they can see that they fit into the agency, then there's more chance that I can see that they can fit into the agency too. And yeah, I think like just a very professional email. If I get an email where the photographer hasn't put time into emailing us, then, you know, it's a good insight as to what they might be like further on when you're dealing with clients and that sort of thing. So attention to detail is like one of my absolute must-have kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything that like sticks out to you, or was there one email that you remember where you felt like, yes, I have to meet this person no matter what, something that stuck out to you? Or is it as long as the work is a good match for your roster and the person seems to be professional, that you put in the time to meet them?
Well, one of the ones is Jean-Baptiste Courtier, who we now represent. And it was just such a timing situation where he'd emailed me and just put one image of his in the email and just a very sort of short but sweet message saying, this is my work, I'd really love to meet you. Have you got time? I'm going to be in London on this day. And it was the image that caught my eye more than anything else. And I was like, oh, okay, that's an interesting photographer. And I looked at the website and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll get back in touch with him. And then preceding that, I saw him be featured by Paul Smith and Marc Jacobs kind of in the weeks afterwards. I was like, hang on a second, that's that guy who emailed me. I really should get back in touch with him. And we met for the first time, and then, you know, we just creatively really hit it off. And so that was that. I suppose that's the most successful email that I've had, because that's like everyone else that I have on our roster and who I've signed have been people that have come from either recommendations of other people or come in via me searching them rather than them getting in touch with me.
Sorry.
Yeah, Jennifer probably knows that. The ringing phone always. No, great, thank you. Isabel, you can also call in. Well, how do you see that? Do you have similar experience with emails that you get, and then reasons why you would answer them or not answer them, or try to meet somebody?
You know, I do think I do love if there is a picture attached to it. I hate if I get a 10 megabyte email with I don't know how many images below, because we get so many emails every day that this really, like, you know, fills up my inbox. So, and so I do like to know immediately what direction the photographer has, just to get a feeling of a look or a style, or if it's fashion, still life, food, you know, whatever it is. So that I think is nice. I think it's always a bit of momentum. I mean, since we are more like a smaller agency, of course, we have a certain capacity and we would love to represent more guys, but we know, like, we would not, you know, we would get frustrated and our artists would get frustrated if we keep on adding to our roster without giving them enough time to really concentrate on their work and try to push for them. So sometimes it's a bit unfortunate that you can't represent more people. But for me, sometimes it's good also if we don't represent people, to see their work, because I always want to sell the right product. So I might have a job request one day where none of my guys is fitting, and I remember, oh, there was this guy who could be a really great fit. So of course it would make sense also to meet the photographer before, because I like to know what I sell, what type of product I sell. I think, yeah, that's about it. I mean, I had one photographer recently, we also signed him finally. Like, he was so sweet, and he was like keeping in touch and keeping in touch and keeping in touch. And at some point he sent me like a beautiful image, macro photography framed. And after that I had to say, okay, let's start working together. I mean, also he's based in London and Paris at the moment, but he's willing to come here and he's willing to do all he can. He's very talented and very sweet and very humble. And, you know, I couldn't resist. I said, okay, like, let's try it. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, and what I don't like actually is in emails, if photographers write, oh, we work for, like, our clients include Vanity Fair, Vogue Italy. I don't know. I mean, then you have a certain type of expectation who this photographer is. And then you wonder why you never, like, heard of the name, or like, well, but you still are curious, right? So you would look at their work, and at the end you find out they had once an ad for some other client in a Vanity Fair or in a Vogue Italy. Or I don't think, you know, it's better, like, be a bit more, you know, realistic and a bit more honest of what you're working on. I mean, of course you want to use the big names you know, the big, like, so you get the attention. But still, I think I'm more disappointed if I look at the work and can't see what it promises me, you know? So that's my advice.
Okay, great. So somebody asked what agency Isabel is from, and her agency is called Isabel Scharnberg Creative Management. Just to clarify that again. So both of you mentioned timing is important, and also clients, and that actually is what people asked earlier, like in the chat as well. So it seems like it depends on if you need this kind of artist, or if a certain client has just asked for something that makes you maybe think about taking on new artists, or do you also have a set timeline? Let's say you once a year at the beginning of the year, you re-evaluate your roster and you actively look for new talents, or is that really just on the go? Jennifer?
It's really about the management and how much you can physically cope with in the agency, because like we were saying before, that the photographers don't just sit there and like on the roster and wait for the work to come in. You've got time of like working on portfolios, keeping like the work relevant, working on new projects. So you can only physically have, well, you can only responsibly have a certain amount of photographers within the agency to be able to give them the time that you want. So, you know, we've had situations where we've had artists come on board that we knew were going to create a lot more work for the agency. So we had to look at the staffing and work out if we were going to have that person who's going to bring in that much more work, and that's great. But how are we going to cope with it and not let that affect the other photographers? So there's a planning situation that, and you can, like, we'll have periods of time where we go, right, at the end of our sort of year as a business, you go, right, okay, how did we work? Can we, like, to grow, can we take on another photographer? And what photographer is it that we're looking for? And you can be looking for ages. Like, there's a particular type of photographer that I want in my agency at the moment. I just can't find the right person. So it's like, if people get in touch with us, I'm always trying to say to them, the reason I'm not meeting you is because you're not right for our clientele, or you're not right for the agency. Not that we're not looking, because it's insincere. So I'm like, right, okay, we are looking, but it's just not what we can't find what we need right now. And so it's an interesting thing, and you don't want to have an agent who can't give you the time to represent you in the way that they want to anyway. So.
Of course. Isabel, that similar to your experience?
Well, you know, I mean, right now we are really like really out of capacity at the moment, but that doesn't mean anything, you know. As I said, I really like to look all the time because I want to be up to date. And, you know, and I like also, if I like something, I would meet the photographer in any event if we're going to sign him or not. Because, as I said, if there's another project coming up where he's a good fit, we would certainly, you know, suggest any other photographer who's not officially on our roster. And but therefore it's good to know the personality, to get a bit an idea how they work. And, you know, I think it would be a bit too risky to sell someone just because of his pictures. I think it's because at the end of the day we are responsible for what we sell, and that everything works out. And so I would always rather prefer to meet. But it can be any time of the year, really. I mean, there's times where we're really busy, and sometimes photographers shouldn't give up just because we don't answer. You just have to understand we get a lot of emails. So sometimes it's just there's no time. We are so like in other jobs and organizing and negotiating that we can't take the time. So it's always good to follow up. It's not only one email and we don't get back and you think, oh, I mean, I hate to not get back, but I do that too sometimes because I just don't have a choice, you know, because I just can't take time for that right now. But it's good to keep on, like, you know, following up and like to be consistent and like, you know, trying to get the attention, you know.
Okay, I guess it's it also boils down to like communication, to what like Jennifer said before. Sometimes it's just not a good fit, and then you have to clearly say, stop, like look for a different agency. Well, on the other hand, you can say, well, time-wise, you would be a good fit, but it wouldn't be fair to my like current artist or to the new artist to bring somebody on, but please keep checking in. I guess communication in this case is very important, and maybe also for photographers to persist in getting this answer. Like, why is it because you don't have time? Or maybe photographers should ask for these information too. Would you agree? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
then once you meet them, the photographers, a lot of people would like to know, like, what should be in this portfolio? Is it important that it's like particular like covers, particular names? Is it important that artists bring their own clients? So if you see people work already for really big name, is it very important for you for your own business that they bring it, or is it just some kind of reputation that you are looking for, or is it plainly the work and maybe the challenge to make this artist big? Jennifer.
It's interesting actually, because I was thinking about that the other day, because I was talking to a photographer and he was saying, oh, the agent was only interested in which brands I'd worked for, and like that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the visual of the artist, who they are as a person, whether with their sort of potential for them in our market and the clients that we're working with. But at the same time, you know, for me, if someone's worked with a client and they've got repeat business, it's not about the business element, it's about the fact that they can work and retain clients and the people like working with them. It's one of the hardest things is that you meet a photographer 5 or 6 times and you work on their portfolio and try and get a sense of them, and you know, you haven't had a production with them. So until you've been on set and you've gone through the production, you don't really know what it's like to work with them. So, you know, it's a really good thing that if a photographer has a great sort of set of people that he works with, or he or she works with, in terms of the stylist, the hair and makeup artist, you know, it means that they're able to work in a team. And if they have a relationship with even one client where the client comes back to them more than once, then that's a great sign, because you go, okay, they did a good job, the client's happy. So, you know, and that doesn't matter in terms of who that client was, whether it was Vogue or whether it was, I don't know, a small design company that they've forged a good relationship with. It's just a good sign. So, you know, it's a lot of those things where you go, right, okay. And one of the things that we've seen a lot with the, I suppose, the boom and the popularity of photography is that the photographer, like, everyone can be a photographer now. And I've talked to Jamal about this in the past, in the fact that actually it's about crafting your image. So if you can show that you're able to control and craft the image, well, then that's great. And it's something that we often meet photographers and you go, they're really interesting talents, but actually they haven't controlled what's inside that space. And when we're getting commissions, that's what we're being asked for. We're being asked to be able to control what's inside the frame. So that's one thing that I often see people missing in newer talent, not so much in the slightly more old school talent.
Okay, great. Isabel, do you agree with Jennifer that, or how do you, how important are names in the portfolio of photographers, or the fact that they already work with particular clients and potentially bring that business to the agency?
I mean, I do agree to what Jennifer said from the first part of it, that it doesn't really matter which client they work with, and you know, if the clients come back, that is a good sign. You know, they know how to behave and they know how to do a good job. I think it really varies, you know. Once in a while you have like this upcoming photographer knocking your door and you see the potential, but he's not working yet with any Vogue or any other really big publication, but like, you know, the idea of like building his career because you see potential, you know, that can be really a fun part. of course, if someone knocks on your door who has already like all this great, you know, publication, it's kind of course, it's a great reputation as well, you know, you're representing. So it's, you know, it's both ways, I think, you know, I do think. So I think it doesn't matter only to knock on a door with like big names, you know. And it's also, it's a very personal thing. For me, it's always like, I do like something, someone else doesn't like it, but I can only sell what I like. That's all I can say. So it's a very, it's very relative, right? What do you like and what do you know? I mean, it's all about like, yeah, what you think you can sell as an agent, you know, I think.
Okay, great.
I was going to ask, sorry, can I ask Isabel something? Because there was just something that you mentioned before. Because I was going to talk about iPads and portfolios. But in New York, are you presenting things in printed portfolios, or are you presenting them on screen more?
You know, I do love books, you know, to be honest. And when we do presentations here, it's sometimes tough. We have like those breakfast shows, creative shows. I don't know if you have those as well, where we have to bring like donuts and
everything,
bagels and coffee. And then, of course, it's still beautiful to show books. So I recently had the situation that I have some artists who say, like, I don't do books anymore. I just do iPad. So, yeah, as an agency, you have probably 2 iPads. You know, why would you have, like, 10 iPads, right? So, and I know that a lot of companies are renting iPads for that events. But at the end of the day, I collected from all my artists their iPads. And I had a mix up, you know, but I felt a little bit like it, you know, I think, I don't know, it's nice also you can show videos nowadays and GIFs. So it makes sense sometimes. And since there's a lot of digital advertising nowadays and not so much print, it does make sense to me to represent on an iPad. But I mean, the job when you travel gets easier with a little iPad, right?
Yeah, rather than having a 5-kilo bag. Because one of the things I was going to say about when an artist comes to meet us, we've started saying to people, like, bring at least 1 printed piece, because you get a lot of people come with their work just on their laptop in folders and that sort of thing. And I'm so interested in what it looks like printed, because that's what it's going to be in a magazine or on a billboard, you know. And
right.
You have to have something, whether it's a proper printed portfolio or just like
I do agree. I'm a bit old school in that way too. So I do agree, and I love, you know, I love books and printing and all of that. And but you know, like catching up with all the artists, catching up with constantly resending new work is, of course, you know, it's tough for some of them. Either they work a lot or, you know, so yeah. No, but I do agree. I'm also like only iPad nowadays. I mean, it works, but yeah, but I do love printed books.
Okay,
still.
Great. That was actually exactly what I wanted to ask you guys next, how you wanted to see this work, but great. And a lot of people ask that, this practical question. Another interesting question that I read from our audience was, so once you actually signed with an artist and you feel like you don't really feel like you might feel misrepresented, or you're not getting the work, or you're even hesitant to even pick an agency because you feel like once you sign with an agency, you're kind of stuck and you kind of ruined your career. How do you see that relationship with an artist? Do you feel like that's like a growing relationship, or yeah, how can you tell artists who are scared to sign with an agency to have that stamp? What would you tell them? I don't know if I formulated it well. Just ask me again if you need me to clarify. Jennifer, what do you think?
Well, it's a bit like Isabel was saying earlier. It's like it's a marriage in one respect, because you spend a lot of time on the phone to that person, and you know, and you go through ups and downs where you're pitching for something for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then you don't get it, or you pitch and you do, and you know, so you do have like a roller coaster of that kind of professional relationship, and it's hard because you invest a lot of time on both sides. So there's been artists on my roster where we put so much work in, and you know, we've gone, okay, a year down the line, there's something that we're not communicating right. We need to change something about how we're sort of selling you as an artist because it's just not being picked up. And that's really difficult because you feel responsible as an agent to get them work, and they're responsible as the photographer to create work as well, so that you've got something to sell. So it is a real sort of, it's a partnership, and like, you know, and you do have to, like, one of the things that a friend of mine said the other day, they were like, well, as soon as you sign with an agent, that's the beginning. You can't sit back, actually. It's not going, okay, right, I've got an agent and I can now sit back and let them bring all the work in. It actually makes it harder in one sense because you've got more eyes on you. So you've got more eyes on you, people are seeing your work more often. So you have to deliver and sort of create exciting stuff. But you also have your agent to do that with. So you have a sounding board of someone to work with that you haven't necessarily had before. But, you know, I think it takes time. It's investment of time from both sides. And, you know, we always get photographers come to us and say, oh, you know, I'm with this agent and I'm not happy with them because of this and they're not getting me work. And I'm like, well, I'm sure, like, I hope none of my photographers are saying that to anyone else, but you can't guarantee that. And so it's just it's a two-way thing, and I think time's really important, and honesty, because if you feel like there's something not quite right in the relationship, it's best to say, because that's when you strengthen your relationship going forward. And I would always say, talk to your agent about kind of what you're expecting, or if something's not working in the way that you were hoping, and because it's better to try and work it through with that person when you've already invested that amount of time than just sort of upship and kind of go somewhere else and start almost from square one.
Okay, great. Isabel, can you add something to this?
I totally agree to everything. What I would add probably is like trust. It's very important, but you have probably mentioned that, but you know, they have to trust you. You know, we have, so it has to be a very honest and open relation in a way that, you know, each other says when something is going wrong, or if the photographer gets approached directly from the client who we have been knocking doors forever, that, you know, he obviously lets us do the negotiations. And what's really important too is like for us to have content, you know, they have to produce. Also, if something is not, you know, let's say, like, I mean, like, it takes time, exactly what Jennifer says as well. And we always need new work. Otherwise, you know, if they don't provide us with new work, and then they also have to listen what we need, you know. And some are lucky and they have even a photo studio. And if you tell them I need more lifestyle shot, or this is what you know, let's, you know, have discussions, which direction do we want to go, like, you know, discuss with them, what are your goals, what are your dream clients, you know. And even if it's like a client where they think, maybe, yeah, I put this on the list, but I think it's like not realistic, I said, yeah, it is, you know. I mean, it can take time, but you should have goals, you know, and dreams, you know. So then we can also work on that. If we say, oh, if you want to get this and that client, we would recommend you to shoot a little bit more this or shoot a little bit more this, and we can have better chances to sell you, you know, because it needs to be the right thing to sell. You cannot just write, you want to shoot for like Armani, and then you shoot, I don't know, like food. I mean, I mean, that's a stupid example, but like just saying, you know, then it needs to be also like tailored towards the client, you know. Be creative, be like, don't wait and lean back and sit and wait until something happens. No, like, you know, move yourself, get inspired, you know, like, and don't look too much left and right, what are other people doing, because I think that's a killer. When many photographers say, I could do this too, I'm like, yeah, you could. I do think like a lot of jobs we see right now out there, any of our guys could shoot them, yes, because either you have top models and you have a huge budget, and then you have a top team, because it's not only the photographer, you know, creating the image, it's the whole, it's a team, you know, it's a teamwork, it's the stylist, it's the model, it's the, you know. And so I do think everyone is capable to, like, if they learned how, you know, to do nice lighting and all of that, everyone can shoot anything. That's not the question, you know. I think it has sometimes to do with luck, with networking, with there's many circumstances, you know, I'd say, you know, which help or not. So
yeah, I think what came up a couple of times now is this like being the right fit. And there's actually one question that Lev asked about the geography, like the market that you were in. It's great to have you from London and one from New York, and we were supposed to have George from LA. So are there any market specific features that an artist should have, or if they are working in one country and then trying to find representation or work in another country, how important do you think it is that the photography matches a particular market, or is it more important that the artist has its own voice? Or are there any differences in different markets at all? Jennifer?
Well, there's definitely difference in like different markets, and that's why I was sort of quite interested to ask us about the New York market, and you know, and like there's different tastes across like what people expect to see. And I've seen photographers' portfolios in where I've represented photographers in London, and then they've got representation in New York, and the work that's being showed in New York is so different to what we're showing in London. And you know, that photographer's working successfully in both places, so it's great because you go, right, okay, well, you can have an agent to communicate you in that way to that market, and an agent to communicate you in a different way to their market. But at the same time, with the photographers, we've got a couple of photographers who are in Europe, and they're close enough to get over, and they come over and do meetings with people, and they're here when we do shoots, and it's fantastic when they come here. But I'd love them to all be in London because it's just much nicer when you've got everyone around you, which is really simple. And like for me, we pitch to America sometimes, and we go we go and see clients if they're like very specific people that we want to see. But I would be hesitant representing an American photographer just purely because of like the logistics of kind of being available, being like readily sort of easy for the clients to get in touch with, and that sort of thing. But that's not to say like if the perfect talent came along and they fitted amazingly into the agency, you would just work around it and make it work. So, you know, there's sort of things that you can say, yeah, it's like this, but actually there's always exceptions to the rule too. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, Isabel, for you, I guess you're lucky to have the experience of 2 different markets in Germany and in New York. How do you see that? How important is it?
You know, I mean, it's probably always a bit easier, like to have your artists in the same, you know, living in the same country. We do represent a lot of photographers from abroad, from Europe. I mean, sometimes it goes better, you know, sometimes they travel more to the US, sometimes less. I mean, what I didn't mention before, when I started my agency, I always wanted to keep my European look, because I think that, you know, the look over there, the advertising, the fashion magazines, everything is a bit more exciting to me. In the US, everything looks very much alike. I mean, if you take Glamour, Allure, like all the magazines, I mean, it's mostly always the same photographers, and it's the same look. And I think also the market here is not as bold as Europe. I mean, I always loved the advertising from England, you know, from the UK. So I thought it was always very bold and exciting. And this is why I'm also excited actually to represent this new photographer who is from London. He works a lot with another magazine, and he is experimenting, very experimental, which I love, you know. And I think it's outstanding. It's something which is, you know, outstanding. So it gets a bit more exposure here, or like people see it more. But other than that, the market here is they're very literal, you know. In advertising, for example, they really need to see what they shoot, the clients. But you also have a very different situation here, because people can lose their jobs from one day to the other, which is different in Europe. In Europe, as a client, on the client side, I say, you're a bit more safe. And here on the US market, you can lose a big account from one day to the other. You will have to, you know, like the employees, they always have a bit, they are not as bold, you know, or not as brave, you know, to bring in new talents sometimes, you know, because it's been working so well, everything, and they want to keep it more this way or that way. You know, sometimes it takes a while until they do changes here, you know. What I do like sometimes is that, you know, department store clients like catalogs, for example, that they are very loyal. There's a couple of catalogs which are very, very loyal to their photographers, and they work with them for 10, 15, 20 years. Of course, it's always hard then to bring someone new on board because there's very little space. But I do still think it's nice if, you know, someone trusts you and works with you for a long time. So
okay.
I think that's...
I just saw another really interesting question. I know we're like slowly coming to the hour that we had planned, but can you say a little bit about this process of building a career or building a relationship with an artist? One question was, what are the steps to bring somebody who doesn't have that much work yet to actually booking new jobs when you first start with an artist? Isabel, do you want to start now that you're...
I'm happy to start. Well, I mean, the most important, as I mentioned before, is like, you know, you have to produce, you know, you have to give us something we can work with, you know. If you come with like a pretty empty portfolio, you know, like then, you know, we have to work on this together, and we give you we give ideas what we could do and which direction. I mean it all, and then it's on the photographer to give us some material in order to make us move things, and we will try to set up meetings, we will follow up, we will do our job, you know, do networking, do lunch meetings, to send presents, whatever we have to do, you know, in order to make things like, you know, to start something. Because I think it's nice to, if they still do like a printed, you know, like a printed postcard or something nice, you know, which gets attention, because nowadays everyone sends emails, and I think it's very it's not very personal. So the more outstanding the promo pieces, I think, the more attention you will get. Not that in America anyone would get back to you immediately most of the times, but at least you get that, you know, you know, maybe a good exposure to that.
Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about your process?
Yeah, no, totally. Because it was made me think, actually, we've got a really young photographer coming on to our roster this summer, and I'm so excited about him in terms of kind of the space in the market he's gonna inhabit, and, you know, his potential moving forward. But he's really nervous because on a practical side, he's going, great, you know, I can give you the work, I've got projects that I want to do, we can do all that marketing stuff, but what happens when I actually get a job? And, you know, how am I going to cope with that on a sort of a production level? Because I haven't done that. And so and that's happened a couple of times with like some of the less experienced photographers, because I don't know if you've seen it in New York, but, you know, we get a lot more talent coming up where they haven't assisted a photographer for 10 years. And so they haven't got as much sort of industry experience. And so, you know, a lot of the time it's either we'll do sort of like smaller shoots with them and get people and do almost like testing, so that we get them a team to work with and we give them kind of smaller briefs where it's not a great big commercial thing, so that we can kind of get them used to working in the way that they want to work when we get the commercial work in. But then, you know, we also give them a lot of production support. So if it's like a new photographer, we'll always have like a fantastic producer next to them, and so that they're able to work as a team, so that they feel supported on that stuff too.
Amazing. Okay, great. So before we wind down, the last audience questions. Are there any platforms where you look for new artists or for the work of their artists? Any kind of artist platforms like Behance or anything that you look for?
That's really hard. There's so many of them.
Right.
You know, it's we look at a lot of platforms ourselves to go, right, okay, where should we push our photographers on different blogs and that sort of thing to make sure that they're getting noticed by the market. And there's just too many, so it's better off just sort of like, I suppose, getting your work seen in lots of places. And you know, Instagram is really important. I know that the guys at Creative have done sort of different talks about Instagram in the past, but you know, it's so crucial. And you know, we're using Instagram all the time to find stylists that we're looking for, to look at like clients when we're pitching to clients what work they've been doing recently. It's such a quick, sort of easy way of reaching out to people. So I'd say your Instagram is pretty crucial, really.
Great. Isabel?
So, you know, I look also, I mean, we look everywhere, but as I said, most of the times too, like, I mean, we have to read so many blogs and everything. So of course, anything which interests me, then, you know, I would look it up and look up photographers. So I can't even tell you, yeah, it's tons of, I mean, it's from Now.Nest to, I don't know, tons of, you know, different newsletters we get every day, you know, where we look at work and dig in deeper, you know. So I wouldn't say also not any particular platforms, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, cool. And then thank you so much already, guys. The last question that I have to both of you is a little bit of an outlook where you see the photography industry going in terms of new media, video, just something that you could give these photographers that are listening to us, like little direction. Where do you think the industry is heading? Jennifer?
I love forecasting and sort of the kind of the trends in image making, and so, you know, I could talk about it forever, but I suppose, you know, photography is at its peak. We've never seen so many photographers, and you know, it's so easy to be part of it and learn about how to be part of the industry. I think now, because of that, it being a master of what you do is the most important. So really specializing who you are as a photographer and going, right, okay, instead of trying to be, you know, everything. There was one time when I was representing a portrait photographer at another agency, that the other agents were going, oh yeah, you know, lifestyle's really big at the moment, so why don't you go and shoot some lifestyle stuff and like loosen up your style. And like, I totally disagree with that, because I was going, no, like just hold up. Okay, lifestyle was big at that time, but just hold on and be good at what it is that you do and specialize. I think specializing is absolutely the key for our professional photography. It's the only way to kind of keep that we're the professionals, and then, you know, and have a distance between amateur.
Cool. And video, do you think it's
yeah. It's crucial. But at the same time, you know, I was laughing because Isabel was saying about, you know, not all photographers can do moving image. Well, they don't embrace it in the same way as other photographers. And, you know, we have that on our roster. There was one photographer that I took on and I was like, oh yeah, can you do some moving image? Because it would be good to have it for our client. And he did some, and I went, oh, can you not do any moving image for a while? Because it really wasn't good. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do about this? So, you know, we get moving image come on almost every brief we have come in now. So, you know, that if you can get good at it, then you should just definitely do it.
Okay, great. Isabel, your outlook, your verdict.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I do think motion is an important part. I mean, to be honest, they're like most of the guys, I mean, they use DPs, you know, like, I mean, some of them, you know, do their own videos, and some even know how to edit and so on. I mean, it always involves a team, no matter what, I think, you know, the video. You know, there's just rarely someone who can do it completely alone. But I do agree as well that, you know, photographers should concentrate on what they love to do, and what they're good in, and not try to be someone they're not, because they think, oh, I want to be a fashion photographer, but they're probably, their love is in portrait or documentary. I mean, I know it's a hard field. I mean, at some point they have to make a decision, but but they have to keep on working on it. I mean, Sebastián Salgado didn't become, you know, this great photographer overnight, you know, like, because everyone always says like, yeah, he comes from a big, like, you know, like from a good family and like big, it's all not true, you know. I think there's always possibilities, you know, and I think trying to find your niche as well is a good thing, you know. Maybe, you know, if you're from South America, concentrate on the Latin market. If you live in New York, whatever, or like go for the African American market, or go for portraits, or go. I mean, I think there's a lot of possibilities out there, and there will always be, you know. I think photography is like, yeah, I mean, it's needed all the time, the content, you know. But more and more, of course, video. You should definitely figure out a way to have a team in your back in case you need it, you know. Like, but I think it's not everything. You can also like survive only as a still photographer, I think. So if it's not yours, you know, why pushing for it? I would not force anyone for that if it's not their thing. Okay.
Great. So find your own path, find your own style. I guess that's a nice
keep on moving. Yeah,
exactly. That you both have. Yeah. So I think we'll wind this down. And thank you so much, Jennifer Turner from Wren Artists, and Isabel Scharnberg from Creative Management. Thank you so much, guys, and have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Thanks, Bea. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye. Ciao. Ciao.